So I know we're going to bounce around, but just before we get into everything, just as a quick yes, no, were you at the New York Drive event?
Yes. Yep.
All 3 days or 2 days?
Yeah, no, whole event.
Okay. I was there as well. That's the one I went to.
New York was an event.
On this episode of Grenadier Works, we get a Grenadier airborne, Sammy Hagar has some interesting pants, and Krabby definitely goes rogue. But before all of that fun stuff, let me introduce Anand. He is a forum member, and we forgot to record the introduction when we interviewed him, so sorry about that, folks. Anyway, Krabby, take it away.
Were you with the guy who hit the tree?
Assuming this doesn't make it in the actual podcast, which one?
Yeah. Oh, there was more than one. Because I was there.
Was it all the same tree?
No.
I was there on Thursday.
Okay.
And it was sort of misty, rainy. It was really slippy.
Yeah.
I was quite, I wouldn't say quite taken aback, but the mix of people who were there that day in terms of potential customers was very unique in that, like, there were, and not to stereotype or anything, but there was like some very slight women there. And I can't imagine them having to muscle that truck a little bit through having never driven off-road, especially with the lack of natural corrective steering on them.
Yeah. I can say that the only incidents that occurred in New York were both male.
Was it the guy who looked like Sammy Hagar with the crazy pants? You know the guy I'm talking about?
Yeah, we called him Einstein.
Yeah, we called him. Because we were there, and my brother's like, "Holy shit, it's Sammy Hagar!" And I turned around, and he's got like the patterned Zubaz pants on, and the hair, and
he stuck around for like most of the day and started jumping in the back seat with random people.
Wow. My brother and I talked about it the entire 2 hours there and 2 hours home. Is who's the customer, who's the target, and so if you walked in there, you saw lots of sort of run-of-the-mill 4x4 guys wearing work boots and jeans and flannels. Okay, we were there. Then you saw people who looked very wealthy. I saw a pair of really young guys pull in a shitbox Civic. As we were getting ready to leave, they came up the little hill.
It's every end of the spectrum. And honestly, New York wasn't even a diverse one compared to some of the other ones.
Really?
It's literally, that's why I can't even remember who it was, but someone that was saying, there's only one type of potential Grenadier owner, and I called him out and said that he wasn't correct about it. And a lot of people have that misconception of it does fit one fairly narrow stereotype of potential owner, and it's literally every end of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's what we've realized, because in the first episode we get into how and why everything was put together, and there's a snippet in there, and it breaks it down in percentages where they were trying to get, or where they identified their customer base. And I've said this before to Krabby, it's like it's a little bit of everybody,
really
from top to toe. And it's not just, somebody that's only ever had Land Rovers or Land Cruisers. It's like it's a little bit of a skim from every single market segment.
It is, and they Ineos themselves have it broken down into 4 different large categories that they're going after, for completely different types of owners. So I'm going to butcher this. I know Greg has talked about this in a few of the videos, but there's the people that will use it for work purposes. There are people that will use it for a lifestyle. There are people that use it to go out and adventure. And then there are the true utilitarian people that will use it for everything the marketing has ever said it will. But there is that segment that just are looking for it because it's a half price G-Wagon.
Yeah, we've thrown that out there, and I also said that I want it for a number of reasons, but one of them is because no one else is going to have one.
I've talked to plenty of customers, potential customers, I guess is the appropriate way of phrasing it, that one of their big driving forces is that, as far as they know, they'll be the only person in their town or in their area that has it. And when they go to events and people are walking through the parking lot, they go, "Oh man, what is that? Who owns that thing?"
Yeah, the exclusivity's pretty alluring, and it's unusual nowadays because it's, you have to pay an obscene amount of money or be at the pointy end when something starts.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a lot. I mean, the people that you've been seeing and, helping to learn how to drive a little bit better, hopefully. Those have been the guys. But I've got the statement here. It's from, oh gosh, what's it chap's name? It's from Tom Cotty, the comms director at Ineos. He definitely was 2, 3, 4 years ago. So anyway, it's the largest of the market segments, the lifestyleists. That's about 65%. So it's a little bit of everybody.
I'm glad that was actually publicly shared at some point.
Which category do you think Sammy Hagar fits in?
So Sammy Hagar,
it's utilitarian. He's got to drag his stuff from gig to gig.
Exactly. He's got to tow the trailer, the band trailer. But apparently, he had the very first new Defender in the country.
The new Defender.
Yes, apparently he had the very first new Defender, and it was delivered to his home directly by Land Rover, who also sent dealer techs to his house to learn about it.
That guy must be loaded. I'm curious what he drove, which car in the parking lot was his. Not the Rivian.
No.
Hang on. Have we established that this wasn't somebody that looks like him? This was the actual guy?
No, it's definitely not Sammy Hagar. It's not the real Sammy Hagar.
Oh, man, I was getting all excited then.
No, he looked like, I showed you the picture. He looked like him. Wearing Zubaz pants. He had these crazy, Yeezy Adidas something sneakers on.
Maybe he's a stunt double, and Sammy was busy that day.
Maybe. I would imagine the trails we were on were pretty good in terms of actual off-roading, as opposed to some of the events where it was in a parking lot type thing. Where those were some legit. Those were some legit trails.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, as the drive team, we didn't get to pick locations. The marketing company picked the locations. The property was in New York, was wonderful as a training property. It was very tight. It's a great training property, with the unfortunate side that the vast majority of people that arrived to the event weren't there to learn off-road driving. Stu, you were at LA?
Yeah, that's right. And when they announced where it was, I'm like, yes, that trail is great, especially if it's a hard, if we're in there for an hour, because you go over the top and you come down over the reservoir, and it's absolutely stunning view. Yeah, I took the LR4 up there.
Okay.
It was the first off-road trail I did when I put the real tires on it and stuff.
It's gorgeous out there.
It is beautiful. And that day was really nice as well, because you still had the snow on the tops and stuff.
Yep.
But I got really excited when I found out it was going to be, I think it was on the Gorman Flat. And there's 2 ways that you can go to the other side of that hill. One of them, when you get to the top and you're just going over the brow of the hill, and it's pretty steep going up, there's a 2-foot drop. And I'm like, yes, and it's on a downward slope and all the rest of it. So you've got to be careful how you take it. And it's not wide. I mean, it's not the same as New York, where you've got undergrowth and everything apart from really scratchy juniper bushes. But it's that thing of there's an upturned Land Rover that got burnt out, that they sort of left there as this is what happens, be wary.
With the Rangers actually told us about that.
Yeah.
So
that's disco too.
That's going up the hill. It's lookout hill or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a really good drive.
It is. A number of us went up there.
Okay.
But unfortunately, for all the events, we arrive the day before for setup. And so the marketing company pretty much sets up the facility, if you will, and it's our responsibility to, hey, go find a route that fits within 15 to 17 minutes of actual driving. We came direct from San Francisco to LA, and we were in San Francisco 2 days before the LA event, and just happened to look up, oh, hey, where we headed? I looked at it and saw, oh, hey, the National Forest is closed to all activities. And we went to the marketing company and they went, oh, okay. No, we've confirmed it's open for us. I'm like, okay, it's open for us, but what are the conditions like? And honestly, the conditions weren't bad. We were impressed.
It's a fun place to go. It's especially good for dirt bikes. So you go up there and there's a lot of kids that are training.
Were you there when the dirt bikes showed up by chance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it Kelly Leak? You want to get that reference. Stu, are you familiar with the movie The Bad News Bears?
No, but I'm sure you're going to educate us.
Well, just real quick. So it's a movie from the 70s about a little league baseball team coached by a drunk. And so there's the kid, his name is Kelly Leak, and he's like the local badass. He smokes, but he has like a little Yamaha. It's probably like a 70s version of I don't even know what you would call it, but a little dirt bike. And like he goes tearing across the field. And so anytime like where I live, if we see someone go by a dirt bike, oh, it's Kelly Leak. It's Kelly Leak. So great movie.
I don't think he was there. Or if he was, he's definitely aged very, very well.
No, he looked like an old man when he was a kid. Once we get things back on the road, right now the Fit doesn't quite handle the rocks like like my truck did.
You just need more skinny pedal, that's all.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell us the Fit is unfit?
No, the Fit is go. That was the advertising campaign. I buy it. I do. Yeah. The Fit is go. It's the best car I've ever owned. So,
which is why you're here right now.
Yes. The Fit was built on purpose. It seats four comfortably. The seats flip up and down nice. You can put tons of stuff in it for being so little.
What's the roof holding capacity, though?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm thinking not a lot. That would be like it's like a roller skate to begin with. Then it'd be really top heavy if you put something up there. So, but you know what? It's a good segue here. I don't know if you listen to.
So what color is it? Tell everybody.
Oh, it's purple. Yes, I think it's actually called eggplant, which wouldn't even make sense to British people because you don't use that word. You call it aubergine, whatever.
Aubergine.
Eggplant, yeah. So
it lends itself to the exotic.
Yeah. So, but as you'll hear when you listen to episode 2, we have a guest. And the first question we ask this guest is kind of the first question we're going to ask everybody. And that's basically like, what's your car history? Like, what was your first car? You grew up in
we also need to say welcome.
We didn't do that last
time. Sorry.
It's good to be here.
Last time it was the same thing. We just started BSing. Like we just started talking.
Yeah, and we recorded it at the very end. It's like welcome Ingemar, and then we'll bye. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was after the fact. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me here.
So your car history. Where did you grow up?
Until I was 15, I was in Maryland. Lived in San Diego for a year and a half, and then back to Maryland, and have been Maryland ever since.
So your driver's license originally came from California?
It did.
Okay.
And when I came back to Maryland, and I was 16 and a half at the time, was driving around with my mom somewhere, and she said, "Why are you squinting at the road signs?" I don't know. I can't read them clearly. So went and got my eyes checked, and the optometrist looked at me and went, "Someone gave you a driver's license?" "Yeah, California gave me a driver's license."
Wow.
It's like, how long ago did you get it? 5 months. He's like, "There's no way you should have gotten a driver's license."
You're legally blind.
The world is much clearer since then. So California driver's license originally, where you don't have to drive on the highway and you don't have to parallel park to get your driver's license.
Really, with all the amazing laws and rules to govern life in California, parallel parking is not on their driver's test.
This was in 2001 when I got my license.
Okay.
But to quote the movie Clueless, everywhere worth going has valet.
This is true. This is true.
No comment.
This is true.
So first car ever, first vehicle ever, I'll go with that, was a hand-me-down 1994 Toyota 4Runner that I only actually had a handful of weeks driving before my mom, who I was sharing it with at the time, spun it on the freeway and met the central wall, at which point that was its end of life. So my first actual car was a 1993 325 E36 BMW.
Okay. A little different than the
Nice.
4Runner.
We moved out to California as a 15-year-old. I didn't know anybody, but I was already pretty big into the Audi forums of the time. And so we met up with a couple people and started the SoCal Audi Club out there. Did a bunch of stuff to a vehicle that wasn't even mine. My dad had no interest in it whatsoever, but he was cruising around in a moderately modified B5A4 at the time. I started working in the European aftermarket for a local performance and service shop. And from then on, it turned into every year and a half to 2 years buying whatever the latest and most popular Volkswagen was to keep up with R&D for new products. And then after that, went to a complete shift and bought a VW Touareg.
They have them?
Oh, which engine though? Because there's some interesting stuff.
They had the V8 diesel, didn't they?
There was a V10 diesel.
A V10 diesel.
The V10s were the first diesels, so it was not that. It was a 4.2 V8.
Didn't they put the W16 in?
They got the W12 in Europe.
12, that's right.
Yeah,
My friend's wife had one of those, and it was, oh my gosh, it was a deadly thing.
Yeah.
It's like it should never have this much power in that vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine was just a run-of-the-mill V8 that at the time, no one in the U.S. at least was doing anything off-roady with them at all. Actually, there was a guy somewhere else in the U.S. that had milled his own suspension lift spacers. So I found him, chatted with him for a few minutes, got some measurements, took my own measurements, and had a set made. And it was one of the very early lifted Touaregs. It was on 31 or 32 inch Nitto Terra grapplers, had a second battery setup in the back, had a whole shelf and storage system that I built for it in the back.
What did you trade it in for?
That got traded in 2.5 years later, and that started my my full-blown, both feet in, jump into the off-road world. 21 Toyota Tundra.
Was that the new design? Is the 21 the last of the old design?
The last of the old design. 13 months later, it was listed for sale, and we picked up the Sprinter.
That's the last real four-wheel drive setup. Right now, it's like a Subaru style, right?
Yeah, it's the last of the true 4x4 with low range, and the last year for the 3-liter V6 diesel.
So when you got your pen out, what boxes did you tick? How did you spec your Grenadier?
Ooh, okay. So it is a base station wagon.
Okay.
So it's Scottish white roof on top of Donny Gray. Steel wheels with Bridgestones because they'll be replaced probably the day I buy the vehicle. It does have leather and heated seats. The compass and altimeter. Rear ladder. Safari windows.
Okay.
Diff locks. Raised air intake. Tow hitch. And interior utility rails.
Okay.
No exterior ones.
Realistically, I don't think I'd ever use them.
Where are you going to put the bottle opener?
Bottle opener's on the fridge. The fridge lives inside.
Yeah. Or I bet
the emergency spare.
Yeah. Because it's not like, I mean, yeah, it's going to take some abuse, but it's not like on a serious Land Rover, you just screw the freaking bottle opener right into the back. Or you don't even think twice about it. You just, where the license plate is, you just go to the other side, 2 screws, you're good to go. But yeah, I don't think I could justify drilling holes into just to mount that.
Interesting you say that you're going to change out the tires. Do you know which ones you would swap them for?
Since the Grenadier is the same bolt pattern and everything as the Sprinters, Method 702s, I believe, with a pizza cutter Falcon Wild Peak, the 255/80/17 tall and skinny.
Which seems to be totally at odds with how things are done in the States, where they have to be as wide as you can possibly get on a rim.
100%. I've had the tall and skinnies on everything. It fits in the Grenadier wheel well. It fits on the spare tire holder. When you air it down, they just turn into giant tank tracks.
Yeah, and it's funny because Stu and I obviously grew up in different parts of the world, but here in New Jersey, 44-inch tires on rotted out Gen 2 Broncos from the late 70s. But yeah, lots of 44-inch super swampers. You hear them coming down the road before you see them. It's like it's the equivalent of the ice cream man. You hear them 2 blocks away.
Absolutely.
So tall and skinny was not part of life growing up. Both my series Land Rovers, I had tall and skinny, and it was great.
My other personal benefit to the tall and skinnies is that you save a good bit of weight per tire. So you still get the same overall diameter, so you get slight lift from the tire, but I think compared to the normal 285/70/17, I think you save something like 7 or 8 pounds per tire.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And that comes in with a fuel saving as well, because you've got the rolling resistance between you and the road. You've also got road noise. I'd imagine they're a lot less as well.
Yeah, there's your overall contact patch is roughly the same, but it is narrower. And then yes, you definitely have the difference in fuel economy, as well as, since your rotating mass is lower, you get slightly better braking out of it as well. Not necessarily speaking on the Grenadier, because its brakes are pretty decent.
There's going to be a big brake kit. Someone's going to come out with a more hardcore brake setup.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely. At that point, would you say that Brembo's working on it? Since Eibach makes the coils and Eibach has a lift?
Yeah.
It'd be foolish not to, I'd imagine.
Wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Especially when you can just take it off the shelf, more or less.
Well, and
exactly.
that's the whole Grenadier thing, right? Like we talked about in episode 1. Like they went to the world's greatest off-road supermarket and bought off the top shelf. So
yeah, no point in redesigning the wheel if you can buy the wheel from someone else.
Exactly. But then why do you buy the wheel and put non-slotted brakes on it? Like they're discs, but they're not ventilated. Like,
I guess you have to cut a couple corners somewhere here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they didn't reinvent the wheel, because it's their own steering wheel, which isn't heated.
Oh,
that's what I will say. Just throw that grenade in the conversation.
I enjoy the forum. I read much more of the forum than Stu does. Stu's too busy putting this together. I'm usually just kind of combing through the forum, and like the stuff people argue about, I think is so funny. But the American market is very different.
It is.
It's different in so many ways, and you're a great example of it, because you're like me. I've probably had 25 cars, and I've been driving for 25 years, kind of thing. And that's how Americans are. You get a new car every 3, 4, 5 years. That's just how we are. Yeah. And as I'm gathering, it's not like that elsewhere in the world. So the Grenadier's place in America is going to be interesting, especially then as the thread of the 2024 Land Cruiser situation conversation has gone a different way. And they might not be, generational vehicles that you're going to keep for 25 years, but that you don't need that in America.
Interestingly enough, speaking of generational vehicles in the US, I was actually kind of surprised at how many clients over all the events talked about it being a generational vehicle for them.
Yeah.
They're definitely not the majority, but it was definitely at least one or two that I spoke with at every event that commented about the fact that either this is their last vehicle that they will purchase, or they plan on keeping this vehicle to give to their kids that they may or may not have yet.
Yeah, that's looking a bit forward.
I was given a rough stat by somebody at Ineos when I was querying this. And I said, look, for my personal use, I want a 20-year vehicle. And obviously, they're not going to go on the record as saying this. And this is totally deniable. And I could just be making it up for this conversation. But the reply was, it's good for 25. That's what we've designed it for.
I could see that. I know in one of our early training meetings that we were in with them, they have a timeline goal for the drivetrain, at least. That would align with that.
That is assuming that you can still get that BMW engine in 25 years and the transmission.
Yeah.
This is true. If you go back 25 years, though, you can still get every part for a BMW engine 25 years ago.
Yeah, they're really good with their aftermarket stuff.
Well, and it's funny, though, like to say it's a 20 or 25-year vehicle, it seems like forever, but you know what? I still see people driving Discovery 2s around here. Now, that's mind-blowing because I had an 03, and that would be 20 years now. Maybe it's still running around somewhere, probably because it was a G4. There weren't a lot of them, so it's out there somewhere. So it's not inconceivable. It's just not traditionally how we do things in the States. All right, so you've spec'd it out, probably like a lot of folks. The new wheels and tires thing is going to happen to most of us.
Yep.
You're in the off-road world with the Sprinter and the Toyota stuff. So how did the Grenadier come on your radar?
So a good friend of mine who actually owns a company that makes aftermarket parts for Toyotas sent me a link to it back in September of 21. And
just said, hey, check this out?
Yeah, like, hey, check this out. He had placed a day one reservation for it. Or sorry, I take that back. He was on the email list for the day one reservations. I missed the email list cutoff, so I am whatever the first day was, that 2 weeks after that when the general population could reserve. Yeah. So I looked at it, read up on what was in it, I guess, to use the phrase, the ethos of the company, and really jumped on board with it and put in my reservation and have been along for the ride ever since.
So unlike Stu or me or most of the people on the forum, you were directly connected to the marketing of the vehicle here in America, or the start of the marketing of it.
Yes.
And it's something that, their advertising or lack of advertising, who knows how that'll pan out here, because it's very different than over there. But how did that all go? Like, how did you go from guy who lives in Maryland to Ineos support driver in terms of their marketing campaign?
We prefer the term professional driver. Thank you very much.
Okay. Professional driver. Just like I'm a professional YouTuber.
Exactly. Thank you. See,
I don't see how that can be. This isn't on YouTube.
Well, again,
it's aspirational YouTuber.
Aspirational, professional, aspirationally.
He can make a YouTube short for this. It's fine.
There you go. Vertically mounted.
Yeah. So, years ago when we bought the 4Runner, we started doing some off-road trips and stuff with it, and quickly realized that we didn't really know what we were doing. My girlfriend and I, we were just kind of out and about, and stumbled upon a company called Overland Experts that did off-road driver training, and started doing classes with them. We took one class together and then another and another. We took a lot of classes with them. And after a good bit of time with that, I was told to stop signing up for all these classes. You've already done this class 4 or 5 times. If you want to be here, just show up. So I said, cool, whatever, no problem. I want to learn more, show up. So you do that for a couple of years of just showing up to classes and wearing the t-shirt, standing to the side and helping where you can. And last fall, we were at Overland Expo East, and Krabby, I don't know if you were there for that, but Ineos had the very early prototype on display, and they did a bit of a happy hour for reservation holders at the event. So we were camped out, hanging out with all of our friends from Overland Experts, or OEX. We go down to the North Carolina site, and it's a very tight-knit group. The joke is that we're the couple from Maryland that spends more time in North Carolina than anywhere else, because we're down there all the time. The shop that works in our vehicles is down there, and they're also instructors, and we're hanging out, and they said, oh, well, we need to go over and talk to Ineos. So I said, oh, that's perfect. It's just about time for happy hour. I'm going to go over there and grab a beverage and check out the vehicle. And so we started chatting. I let the higher ups and the actual Overland Experts employees have their professional chit chat while I walked around and looked at the vehicle. And after that, there's some conversation of, oh, we might be handling the drive team for the East Coast events. I said, well, put me down for that. If I'd be more than happy to do that. Fast forward 4 months to January of this year, January this year. And it was worked out that, in fact, it wasn't just East Coast events, but we were doing all the events across the country. They said, sign up for what events you're willing to do. And
check.
Exactly. I went down the whole list. My better half has been to just as many, if not more, classes than I have. So she did the same. And a couple months later, we were zigzagging back and forth across the country. I think over a 11 or 12 week period, neither one of us spent more than 48 hours a week at home.
Wow.
It was a wild time.
Who wouldn't love to just raise their hand and say, all right, yeah, for the next 2 or 3 months, I'm just going to travel around and go four-wheeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the opportunity that's awesome. That's one most of us would sort of, my goal someday is to be able to do that stuff because I'm off all summer as a teacher and my wife is off all summer as a teacher. So that's our goal. So
you're waiting for the quartermaster tour is what I heard.
You know what? Let's not talk about the quartermaster. I have mixed emotions about it.
That's mostly about the name. Come on.
Well, we'll talk about that later as well. I still don't see how it's going to work in America if it's not built in North America. And that's, we've heard about a plant in Mexico. I don't know how much truth there is to that.
That was all a lie.
I don't know. That's the thing. But I just can't see how they're going to be able to import it from out of North America. So have to tack on 25% tax on top of the regular everything, and then attempt to compete in that segment in America. Like
its direct competitor is a 6-wheel G-Wagon. So it's a bargain.
Yeah, I guess. But
we just need the Bellstaff version, which is blinged out inside, and a disco ball and some sequins, and we're off to the races.
I'm looking forward to the thread on the forums that starts after this when someone picks up on what Stu just said and said, "There's a 6x6 quartermaster."
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll go.
How much is that going to cost?
Yeah, but again,
50% more than the 4-wheel one.
Yeah. I think that the mid-size market in America is stronger than it's ever been. And I guess you could argue then that there's always room for another. But not in the price range thing becomes really out of whack really fast.
I mean, the outgoing, I can't remember what it's called. There's a final edition Jeep Gladiator that's this year.
Yeah.
It's the
last
with
that.
the diesel. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 74? 72
something like
is
that.
what it is. So.
But and here's the thing, and this is where the Grenadier situation differs because that's what everybody says. Oh, you top out a Rubicon at 72 or you top out. Well, yeah, but you could also get in to that same vehicle with no bells, whistles, none of that for $35,000. And you can look at Tacomas in the same way. Even the new one.
I'm going to offend someone that's listening to this by my next statement. Have you driven a base model Gladiator?
No, is it horrible? Yeah, I haven't. I had a JK.
My first experience with the Gladiator was I had a rental Gladiator for the LA event, and I drove it.
That was yours.
The one that was completely covered in mud. Yes.
Yeah. We were there because we turned up on a 2-door Bronco, and the engineers were like, "Is that your Bronco?" I said, "No, it's my buddy's." And we tossed them the keys, so they were playing around driving that while we were on our little drive.
Yeah. So the Gladiator went through everything the Grenadier went through. We used it as a trash pickup vehicle on the trail because we cleaned up a lot. Ironically, we found a tail section of an exhaust with a muffler from a Land Rover that was on the trail.
Actually,
that was not mine, by the way. I just want to clarify.
It got to the point where I said, I'm done driving this. If somebody else wants to drive the Gladiator up and down this road, be my guest. I'm done with it.
Yeah, that bad.
The Stu, you drove it the out and back before you actually got to the section, the rocky bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, hard pass in a Gladiator.
Interesting that you should bring that up, because when we were leaving, there's a guy that turned up in a GT3 RS.
Ah, yeah, the one that was parked at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, and I stopped and I said, I really wouldn't take this up there. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but it's not really the vehicle for that, my friend. And we offered him a ride, and he said, no, it's okay. I'll try. So I'm just pleased to hear, if he's listening to this, common sense won out. It's like you would have ruined that thing.
But you see, and that's
beautiful
the thing.
Car, though.
And maybe it's because I am so not wealthy. The thought of, okay, let's say I have a 911 of any sort, and I know I'm going to an off-road type event. Okay, I want to show off my Porsche. But like, think of where you're going. Like the New York event, getting from the highway to the actual site. Good thing I wasn't in the Fit. I don't think the Fit could have made it all the way back there. Those roads were so sketchy. Like, you kind of have to think before you do it, right?
I can confirm that for at least 2/3 of the U.S. events, that logic was not followed.
Lots of people rolling in something fancy, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. At every single event.
Well, I did see quite a few Teslas rolling down that road.
There were a lot of Teslas. There were a lot of Rivians.
Yeah, I saw one in New York.
Yeah, I was speaking to one of the Rivian drivers because we got some friends that used to work for the company. They've moved on now. They started off at McLaren, and they're on to the next project somewhere else. And the Rivian guy, I was talking to him, and he's basically his entire thing was, this is everything that the Grenadier isn't. That's why I'm here. He wasn't so sure if he was going to get rid of the Rivian because it's got its own advantages, but it was just interesting to see somebody that you wouldn't have thought would have been totally interested in this style of vehicle at all, because it's the antithesis of what the Rivian is, which is very forward thinking and tomorrow's technology today.
At the LA event, we had a Rivian engineer.
Admittedly. Openly.
Oh, yeah. He was very open about the fact that he was an engineer for Rivian.
Because did the rest of the world have the Jetsons? Did you have the Jetsons in England?
Yes.
Like, why couldn't Mr. Spacely just go to AutoZone and get some Cogswell cogs? Why did he have to shrink George and send him over there in a package to try to sneak one out? Like, just go buy one.
Have you been to an AutoZone?
I have. I'm still in line. I'm still in line.
Is it an automatic or a manual?
Yeah.
I just need wiper blades.
Yeah, exactly. What's your zip code? No, dude, I just need 17-inch wiper blades. So that's good. Well, and it's like, Stu said, the folks from Ineos went right over to his friend's Bronco to look through that.
Yeah, Stu, you picked a good event because some of the British counterparts were there for that event.
That's right. I was talking to them for about 4.5, 5 hours. I kept apologizing for taking up their time.
Yeah, I think that the New York location worked like you said. It worked great on the off-road part in terms of a place to set up a little quote-unquote pop flash store or whatever. Didn't work out so great. But I thought that was, it depends on where you are in the world, but that was to me very indicative Northeastern four-wheeling.
It absolutely was.
Wet, tree roots, rock underneath soil, slippy, tight, enjoyable.
A lot of I'd say almost all the locations were were decent representations of what that area has to offer. Some courses were definitely much better than others at showing off the vehicle. We had at a handful of locations had clients from completely different parts of the country that flew in because they wanted to drive it in a specific environment. And at least a handful of locations, customers that popped in for a second drive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit cheeky.
I had a client, it was at one of the West Coast events that said, oh, hey, by chance, are you going to be at this event on the East Coast? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, I'll see you there. I'm signed up there as well.
Yeah. there's going to be a mixed reception from that, because I know some people were told that it's full.
Exactly.
I'm assuming that a lot of the dealers that were petitioning Ineos to get the license, let's say, to be a dealer, hadn't driven the vehicle at this point. So what proportion do you think were, professional people coming in that wanted to be dealers or were on the short list, and this was the first time that they were driving the Grenadier?
We always knew if there was a dealer. Whether or not they openly stated they were dealers, 30 seconds into the drive, you know who's a dealer and who's not a dealer. The angle of the questions about the vehicle are completely different, because it's not, oh, if I'm doing this, how is it going to react? It's, so what's popular? Or what do you think will sell well?
Yeah.
Most of the times, dealers were more than obvious because they traveled in packs. So it was never just one person from a dealership. It was usually 2, 3, 4 people from a dealership. Most of the time, piling 4 people into one vehicle and then doing multiple stops to switch through. But there were plenty of events where we had more than one dealer. And yeah, you're right. They had never driven the vehicle. Some of the people in attendance from the dealership had only known about the vehicle for a few weeks at that point.
Interesting.
Primarily, like I had at one of the locations, I had one of the parts managers for a dealership chain.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
So usually the dealership crew, if you will, was almost always a general manager, a sales manager, a service or parts person, and possibly a salesperson. Almost every dealership had the exact same crew that showed up.
So everybody apart from the parts guy is going, yeah, this is a great vehicle to get. And the parts chaps there going, we're never going to make any money. Look at the size of this stuff. It's not going to break.
Exactly. And honestly, that was one of his comments, was like, this thing's really overbuilt in every way.
All right. So with all the, it's probably better to say hours that you invested, at seat time. Did the Ineos folks actively seek your input? In other words, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'll use whoever my driver was. And like I said, it could have been Kevin, as you suggested. But like one of the things he said to me was where the diff lock switches are. Like he said to me, he's like, it has a light. He's like, but when your thumb is on it, you can't see the light. So you don't know if it's lit up. And I said, yeah. He's like, I told him that. I don't know if that'll affect anything. So was there anything that they sort of really wanted feedback on?
Apart from heated steering wheel.
Oh, no. No. They were definitely open to feedback. By the time our tour happened in North America, the vehicles are already in production. Granted, yes, the vehicles in production at the time were model year 23s. In the US, we're getting 24s. There are some changes to the 24s, but it's not drastic. At least nothing drastic that the end user will ever really notice. They're definitely willing. They were wonderful at listening to, hey, this is kind of wonky. Why is it like this? Ironically, I can't say most. A lot of the times, the explanation was simply, oh, that's a prototype. And yes, they're prototypes. They weren't built in Hambach. They weren't built in the factory. They were all built by Magna at the time. And from what I've came to find out, our US prototypes were kind of like second thoughts, more or less, in the production line or in the production of them, given the fact that the rest of the world had already been doing the PTO2 tour. By the time they said, oh, we need to send some of these to the US, we're kind of down the line. So I don't know whether what we had was normal PTO2 or, oh crap, we forgot about that one. What's that one country? Oh, America. Oh, they might want a few of these. But they were always willing to listen. And anytime any sort of issues presented themselves, there was always a quick solution.
Okay, well, that's good.
One thing I will hold you to is if you do see that they change something, and you're like, that's my mod, that's my version, that's the Anand version of this
100%.
car. Put your hand up and let us know and tell us, because that's the feedback loop that is so vital with these vehicles. Is how do you improve it?
Yeah, there's I can't think of, even amongst all the drivers, I can't think of anything that was really large or catastrophic in any way. Not like, oh man, you need to completely change how this works. I want push button 4-wheel drive. Nothing like that. Just little things here and there that everybody has their own personal preference on. So I agree. It will be interesting to see when the 24s actually show up.
When they said New York area, like, it could have been anywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Area is a very loose descriptor.
There's tons of, God, there's millions of people in that very small circle, but there's no chunks of land to really take trucks on. It's not like they were going to do it in Central Park, which would have been epic. Would have been absolutely
so
epic.
Good.
If it was in Central.
What I will say is, in Lower Manhattan, especially Tribeca, there are lots of very, very expensive blinged up Defenders. An incredible amount. So it's stomping ground. And the cobblestones are terrible. It's perfect for a Grenadier to go down.
Yeah. Apparently there's in Brooklyn, there's a Defender refurbisher. I don't know if that's the right word. Like ECD, but in Brooklyn Rovers or something. I just saw that. Where did I see that? In a magazine.
One of the clients I had in New York, when I had one of my normal, like, breaking the ice conversation parts is, what do you drive currently? What's your off-road experience? Just trying to get a feel of the person in the driver's seat. Who was like, oh, I don't have a car. I don't drive. All of a sudden.
So they were buying a Grenadier for their driver to drive them around.
Well, so no, that's
that's good. That's Bentley territory right there.
This is at New York. Krabby, you drove the rounds at New York.
Jesus.
And we're going up the road before, like, entering into the woods, and he's like, oh yeah, I don't drive. And I had this pause in my mind that went, well, this is it. This is how it ends.
If you're gonna go in a Grenadier.
At which point he tells me, oh no, I live in Manhattan currently, so I don't have a vehicle. Like, oh, so you have driven. Okay. He was.
Yeah, I think they wanted to see our licenses when we checked in.
And that was our thing. Was we were told, don't worry, we'll confirm the licenses before they get to you.
Yeah. All right, so this is a good opportunity.
I don't think they asked for my license.
LA was
Stu. Okay, there you go.
LA was early on. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were the test bench.
We learned a lot by the time New York rolled around.
So, in episode 1 of our podcast, I talked about going on the factory tour in Sully Hill for Land Rover. And part of that day, besides the factory tour, was you get to go driving off-road. And they teach you a little bit, but more than anything, you just kind of get to play around. And it was just my wife and I, and I'm doing everything. And the guy was really nice. He's like, you know what? You're speaking to my wife. You should really try. Okay. So she decides she's going to try. So they put her in a brand new, then 2010, I guess it would have been, full fat Range Rover. Beautiful. Oh, it was a silver, nice car. And we were going on this embankment thing, tilts to probably 30 degrees or whatever it is. And the guy's like, no, don't worry. And he's talking to her. And then at one point he had to reach over and grab the wheel so we didn't roll over. So what was your moment sitting in the passenger seat? It could be for not just obviously I was at the New York one and Stu was in the LA one, but like what comes to mind right away when I say that?
Immediate thought. The only time I've been airborne in a Grenadier, not driving.
Airborne.
It was a San Diego event. I had a client that absolutely did not understand, hit the brakes, you need to slow down.
Were you ready to hit the chicken switch?
It was like an off-road race, like a desert race truck track. So what we were approaching was a small embankment, more or less, just a rise in the terrain. Immediately after you go up the rise, you made a hard 90-degree right turn to go through a ravine and then back up the other side. Straight ahead of us was, I don't know, 350 yards of flat desert. If by the time we came back down to the ground, if she was not on the brakes, I was already on the emergency brake with the other hand going to the cutoff switches. Once we came back down to the ground, she hit the brakes and turned, and then laughed and advised me that her driver's ed instructor, when she got her driver's license many years ago, advised her that no one should ever give her a driver's license because she shouldn't be driving.
Wow. So, I mean, this really does come back to the Grenadier being for everybody.
It does, because her son was also driving a separate vehicle at that event. So they were all reservation holders. Her son advised his driver, "Oh man, do you know who has my mom? I feel really sorry for them."
I note that he didn't go in the same vehicle as her. He knew by experience. And I bet I bet they arrived in separate vehicles as well.
So they arrived together, I believe, with him driving.
She was kept in the safety belt in the back seat.
It was. She had a great time after. I mean, once we got over the, "Hi, I need to tell you this and you need to listen to me because we need to make it to the end of this drive," it was all good after that. But yeah, that was my first true, like, this is it. I had a similar moment where I thought we were going airborne at my first event, which was San Francisco. I had a client that accelerated as we were coming up and over a very sharp rise. And I tensed up for a moment, just expecting the worst. And then right at that moment, he transitioned right off of the gas, tapped the brakes, settled the front end, and just like perfect execution over the hill. And he looked over at me and went, "I am so sorry. I didn't tell you that I used to be an off-road driving instructor. And once I saw you tense up, I understand the fear and the thought that just went through your mind. I'm very sorry about that." I went, "Oh, well, you're okay. Just let me know if you have questions. I'll just sit back and relax from now on." And it was all good.
There you go. Were you the co-pilot for Sammy Hagar?
No.
Okay.
I can't remember who he went with. And fortunately, the multiple rides that he did, I was not part of either.
That dude was awesome.
He basically just...
I'm just amazed at the brass balls on the guy.
He would start chatting up random clients that were there, get friendly with them, and be like, "Oh, you don't mind if I just ride in the back while you drive?" And most of them were like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, and I think he's
a great question.
I wonder what he did for a living.
I bet
Sammy Hagar, please.
I bet you his bank balance is higher than all of us combined. So he probably just leads an eccentric life. He was
I could see that.
Yeah, right? I was asking, I don't remember what he was asking, but my brother and I were just looking at you.
Do you think it could have been Sir Jim with a
crazy
mask
pants on?
Oh, like an undercover boss of sorts.
Undercover. For those of you,
that's right, with full Hollywood stage makeup.
The United States or North America, I suppose. You should go on YouTube and find the Saturday Night Live undercover boss, Kylo Ren. Is maybe one of the funniest things that I've ever seen. With Adam Driver as like he was the guest host. It's hysterical. Look that up.
That leads us on to the infotainment system in the Grenadier. What's your opinion on that? Because it's getting a bit of a mixed bag. It's great that we have a lot of functionality and you can see so much compared to a general vehicle, but it's getting a little bit of a panning from some people.
So my personal thought on it, I enjoy data. I enjoy seeing data. In other vehicles, I usually have a Bluetooth OBD2 reader and my phone open to watch more live data than what the instrument cluster shows me. So as far as that goes, I think it's wonderful. I think there are some bits of the information that the general population will never look at. Never once will they actually look at least not in a regularly meaningful way. But to specifically state infotainment as far as the entertainment side of things, yes, it's not nearly as flashy as many other brands. It doesn't have built-in mapping. I think the infotainment in the Grenadier works really well for mentality or the true design of what they were shooting for, allegedly shooting for, however you want to phrase it, whatever you can say, the ethos, I guess. I think it works great for that. Will it be a hit with everybody? No, I don't think so.
As we don't have vehicles here yet, I think the infotainment situation is a potentially bigger issue in North America than the other markets so far. I think, again, it goes back to that who's the customer kind of thing. But I think most Americans, look, me, like, I expect a decent system. Like, like that's one of those, yes, it's a back to basics, true thing. But, giving me good speakers and a decent sound system shouldn't preclude that, So I am kind of curious to see, like, we get Sirius radio. Like, I don't think anybody else gets that, right? I mean, do they even have set? I mean, I assume they have it.
No, it's North American.
Yeah. So just that alone makes it different. And that DAB, I don't even know what DAB radio is. What is that? Is that just this UK thing?
It's digital radio, so it either works. It's a 1 or a 0. It works or it doesn't. So there's no static or anything.
There's that whole big thing right now where, I don't know if it's Congress, where they're like fighting to make sure car companies don't get rid of AM radio. That was a whole big thing in the not too distant past over the summer.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, but basically, a bunch of car companies aren't putting AM radios anymore, and lawmakers are saying, "Hey, look, our emergency broadcast system, AM is much, it travels far and all that sort of stuff, and so they're putting provisions where it's going to have to become, you have to put one in."
Yeah, and I mean, every road sign has, for special event notifications, listen to AM whatever.
Yeah. So I assume it's going to have AM, right? I mean,
the PTO2s did, definitely.
Yeah.
It definitely had AM and FM.
Yeah. So as long as I can hook up my this JVC CD changer in the back, I'll be good to go.
As long as it has that separate display that doesn't match the interior color of any car, yeah.
Yeah. And then I want a gear lever that looks like it's out of a spaceship. And I'm good.
You got all that.
Based on who you ask, you do have a spaceship gear lever.
You know what? Like, there's so many things, in my opinion, they got right. But that's one they got wrong. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit.
I think Greg should have just stolen one from Land Rover when he left and said, "Look, use a new Defender one, please. It's better than this."
Yes.
It's the same gearbox.
Yeah. Same thing with the Jeep one's fantastic.
Shh, you can't say it's the same gearbox, dude. Don't let people know that.
Okay. It's the same gearbox that Rolls-Royce use.
It is.
They should have taken the Sapphire Crystal one.
That's
the Bellstaff edition.
One of the frequent ice-breaking jokes is that it's the same gearbox. It's the only thing that Bentley and Rolls-Royce can agree on is the ZF transmission.
ZF transmission.
ZF transmission.
ZF, yeah.
It is very good, though.
It is a very good transmission.
Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the Grenadier, right?
Exactly. That's why it has to be good. That could stir some forum posts as well.
We have a really good opportunity to poke fun at the forum right now, because right now there's only several hundred people who listen to the podcast, but there's several thousand who are on the forum.
I think it's just 4 people and they listen to it a lot.
Yeah.
That's
because there are
my true feelings on the matter.
Yeah. So it is fun. I agree to sometimes stir the pot with certain things. Again, though, North America's different. Like, a lot of people get bent out of shape, but like, the truth of the matter is, if you're not an American, meaning you're part of this market, and I don't mean necessarily American like you paperwork wise, but like you live here. The way the car market works in America is different than it appears to be in other places. Yeah, and I think as consumers, we are very picky. And I think it's safe to say that if the North American rollout is not significantly different than the rollout has been or was, it would be very, very short existence here.
I know the U.S. is very important to Ineos, extremely important to them. Has been expressed by both U.S. and Euro sides.
It's been called the most important market for them. And that came from Sir Jim when he did an interview, I think it was with the New York Times.
It has been said in many ways. I mean, even through the training we received before PTO 2 Tour, it was backed up.
Well, and we all hope then that all the kinks are worked out. I mean, yeah, the software update and that stuff, but I just mean sort of the bigger picture kinks. Because it's when you think about it, and you saw so many people, as you said, that don't fit the mold, the quote unquote, the demographic of the forum is probably not representative of the people you saw along all the tour stops. So if they're not coming from the Land Rover world, and Stu and I have had this conversation, we do, but you shouldn't really have to buy a $70, $80, $90, $100,000 vehicle and make excuses for it. But like you do with a Land Rover, was what you do. It's just what you do. And in our little circle, then you understand that. But if you're a banker and this is your first entry into this world of type of vehicle, you're going to expect the air conditioning works all the time. That's not a negotiable thing. So it'll be interesting.
It will definitely be interesting to see. And I mean, the benefit is that we get the second year. We don't have to deal with the first year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We are. Waiting is never easy, but
I personally question that a lot. I'm like, oh man, just another vehicle. We don't get the first year yet again, the rest of the world gets something better than we do. And I think it's sinking in more and more now that I think it's a strategic play that North America gets year 2, not year 1.
Okay.
Right.
We have definitely flogged that dead horse to life and back again.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay.
And I think in closing, Anand, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know we've gone way over what we originally discussed. And for that, I appreciate it. And thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, fantastic to meet you. You're close enough that we will meet once we have trucks. It's not a very long drive.
100%.
So thank you so much for being here. And Fear the Turtle. Are you a Terp?
I'm not. I'm University of Maryland, but not College Park in Baltimore County.
Okay.
So we're the Retrievers. So
you're not a Terp. Okay.
No.
For everyone else listening, University of Maryland, they're the Terrapins.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Grenadier Works with Krabby and Stu. Next time, Stu and I discuss the Vegas Grand Prix. Stu justifies his purchase of the Grenadier shovel, and we open your eyes up for the Global Grenadiers merch store. Hope you're excited for our next episode. Have a good Thanksgiving. See you next time.